There are so many great pleasures in life. Falling in love for the first time, a warm cup of coffee in the morning, finally finishing that project that took you ages, dying 300 times to the same boss for hours. Truly so much in this world to be thankful for. I was never really a fan of the Dark Souls series, even though I had so many friends that constantly told me I was missing out. It's not like I never gave them a try. I attempted to play through Dark Souls 3 a while back, but I never really understood the appeal of games that were frustratingly hard to complete. If you didn't know already, that's the biggest appeal of the Dark Souls series, to die over and over and over again, and try your best not to smash your controller into 1,000 pieces. Well, I have some incredible news to tell you. I finally completed my first Dark Souls game. Well, sort of. If you don't know what game I'm talking about already, did you even read the title, or are you just choosing a random video without looking? I'm talking about Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, a game made by the same developers that made the Dark Souls series. Sekiro has a lot of similarities to the prior releases, including the insane level of difficulty, but there are also so many differences. Firstly, the developers at From Software have said time and time again that Sekiro is not a Souls game. I'm not sure why they're so worried that people might mix the two up, but sure, it's not a Souls game. So maybe you came to this video as a longtime Dark Souls fan seeing if Sekiro is really worth it. Or maybe this will be your first time with a game like this. Either way, let me tell you all about my extremely frustrating, yet satisfying experience with this game, and why I think you should totally play Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Okay, so I've already made it clear. I never really had any experience with a Souls game. The whole reason I started playing Sekiro in the first place was because I watched a friend take on a single boss hundreds of times, and for some reason, I thought to myself, yeah, that looks like it could be fun. I've always found it fascinating that there are tons of players that love extremely difficult games, so I guess part of me wanted to see what the whole hubbub is about. In Sekiro, you play as a shinobi warrior going by the name Wolf. As Wolf, your mission is to take revenge on a samurai clan that kidnapped the young lord you were supposed to protect. Right off the bat, I'm a huge fan of samurai stories, so any game revolving around ancient Japan like this is right up my alley. But this isn't a tale grounded in reality. In fact, if you haven't guessed already, there's a meaning behind the phrase Shadows Die Twice. The unique mechanic that Sekiro offers is the ability to revive yourself after death, creating a second chance in battle. Some would say this goes against the idea of a game that is meant to be difficult for players to overcome, but in Sekiro, it kind of works perfectly. While we're on this topic, I absolutely love how the gameplay feels in Sekiro. I think the best way to describe it would be smooth and floaty, while still carrying weight in every action. You can move really quickly in this game, which I like a lot, especially because one of my biggest gripes with the Dark Souls series has always been that it feels slow and clunky. Exploration is made easy with how free every aspect of movement feels, and my favorite mechanic that goes into this would have to be the grappling hook. Most of the time, unlocking a tool like this is something that happens later into a game, but Sekiro is nice enough to give the grappling hook to you right out of the gate. I love the way it feels to zip from ground to tree to rooftop in mere seconds. It's not just helpful in exploration though. It really comes in handy when you need it most in combat. Being able to quickly escape a near-death encounter with this thing is one of the most useful mechanics this game has to offer, and it is easily the best example of a grappling hook done right in games. Speaking of combat, this is some of the most intuitive swordplay I have seen in a video game. Swinging your katana feels very precise, and oftentimes you will need to perform every action perfectly. It's made very clear early on that you can't just run into battle all willy-nilly without having some sort of strategy in mind. A lot of times, video games with similar mechanics allow a player to just button mash strong attacks and eventually it will work out in your favor. But not in Sekiro. To really improve your ability and outmatch enemies to push forward, you have to truly understand how to approach any given battle. You've got to take things at a slower pace by utilizing blocks and parries to find openings. You have to decide when it's actually worth healing, or if you might be wasting an opportunity when you need it most further down the line. I love how combat functions in general when it comes to Sekiro, and although it may feel like a learning curve for some players that are new to this genre, it becomes much easier to optimize as you continue your experience. As much as I like the way a battle takes time and patience, I do have a little bit of a problem with stealth mechanics. There are a ton of situations in Sekiro that require you to become one with the shadows, but to me, it almost feels like these ninja scenarios halt the pacing a bit too much. In the beginning, it feels really satisfying to take down a whole camp of enemies without anybody finding out. But once it becomes the only way you approach enemies because it feels like it might be a bit easier, I find that it slows everything down a lot. I understand that some people may consider this to be one of the biggest strengths in Sekiro, but to me, it felt like I was relying on stealth combat a bit too much instead of fighting it out like a macho man. It's probably a very personal argument to be had, but I'm trying to be as honest about my experience as I can. Something that I forgot to mention is how much I love that you can't change the difficulty in Sekiro. I've always thought that it was better for most games to have one set difficulty, that way the experience is true to what the developers intended. You know, most of the time you end up getting hard, medium, and easy, and it only changes a few things, so having one set difficulty is definitely a good thing. The reason I bring this up as one of the most important factors to my own experience is because, and I hate to admit this, sometimes when I'm stuck on a frustrating part of a game, I resort to just changing the difficulty to make it easier for myself. Having that option stripped away from me, I had no excuse not to fight through the pain and get good. This is what made Sekiro feel very rewarding to complete. I constantly had to keep pushing myself over and over again, no matter how much I wanted to punch a hole in my wall, and the result was always extremely satisfying. Finally killing that boss that took you days to beat feels so damn good, because you actually worked for it. Coming across this feeling the first few times, I actually began to understand why people enjoy games that kick you in the face. Admittedly, sometimes I find myself actively rushing to complete a game, but Sekiro forced me to take my time and earn it. There is an argument to be had whether or not Sekiro should be considered an open world or a more linear experience. In my opinion, it's the best of both. For one, it is an open world in some sense, as you can return to any part of it at any point, but it also feels like branching levels that you can strive towards at any given time. A good way to think about it would be like the Mario level select. You have to complete the previous area to move on to the next, but much like a warp pipe, you can occasionally branch off in new directions. Maybe that's a weird comparison. Let me try to be a bit more specific. There are barriers that restrict you from leaving certain sections of the map, but everything is connected sort of like branches to a tree. I like this more linear style. It makes each part of the map feel more intentional, rather than having a huge open space with nothing to do. The scenery is really something else. The ruined Japanese-inspired structures are beautiful to look at, and although the graphics aren't as impressive as some other releases in the same year, it has its own style and quirks that I find really attractive. Every enemy looks super unique and out of this world, and some gigantic beasts will just make you stare in awe. The amount of imagination that the creative team has is incredible, and it's breathtaking to see these ideas come to life. So here's some final thoughts. Sekiro is really something special. The difficulty level is much higher for what your average gamer is used to, but overcoming the struggles and proving to yourself that you can complete a difficult trial like this is totally worth every game over screen. It was quite the painful journey, but also an extremely satisfying one. So yeah, whether you're a huge Dark Souls fan or have had no experience with games like these, give Sekiro Shadows Die Twice a shot. It might drive you to insanity, but the feeling of accomplishment makes this game shine above all others. Good luck to you, my friend. You're gonna need it. Thanks for watching, guys. First things first, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, we're trying to reach 200 by March, so if you liked what you saw here, consider subscribing. Anyways, keep gaming to the fullest, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.